Welcome to LSC. It's sports time. I'm your host, Bob Hens. Today I have with me Brett Wheeler, who is the new baseball coach over at Kecoughtan High School. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm glad to have you in here, but I've known you for a long time. In fact, I got to do some ball games with you when you were in high school. But we're going to back up. When did you first start playing ball?
I guess when I was about 4 or 5, started playing T-ball. I think it was through, I believe Phoebus Little League. Started playing then. And then as soon as I hit 7, moved up to B-League and then started playing ever since.
Okay, and you've been known as a pitcher from our area, but you played other things growing up just like any kid. You played infield, outfield?
Played pretty much everywhere. Whoever wasn't pitching, I played where they were playing. I played shortstop, outfield. But, coming up, I was more of a shortstop, second baseman type guy. And then as I got up 11, 12 years old, I started pitching more and more. And I started getting pretty good at it.
Well, let's go back and talk about some of your coaches that you had when you first started.
I mean, I had the legendary Phil McCoy.
Oh, okay.
He had both of my brothers. He drafted them onto the Orioles when they first got started. And then as we grew up, when I was 8 years old, he took me with the first pick. I couldn't hit the ball, couldn't throw the ball, but he said he said I had great brothers and a great family, so he wanted to take me.
Yeah.
And he was just a legend down there. And he just taught us guys how to win. And, I had him from the time I was 8 years old till I was 12, and we moved out of A-ball.
All right, talk about, did you have a lot of the same teammates then as you ended up with in high school, or did you play against some of them?
Yeah, actually, most of them we played with down at Phoebus, and we were all best friends. I think that's why we were a pretty good high school team. From the time we were young till the time we grew up, we were always playing with each other. You had David Denton, Damon Phillips, known as Pookie, Mark McFadden, Mike Niamaka, Tommy Staten, Russell Ward, Tony Jordan. I mean, there were so many guys down there that played Little League ball. And then Clint Hall, we moved up into, JV ball. And it was a core group of guys just kept moving up with us. And
all right. And now, as you got older, the competition got better. Who worked with you on pitching? Your older brothers had a lot to do with your influence of your baseball, right? Yeah,
my brother Brian was a standout pitcher at Kecoughtan, and so he was always helping me at home. That was sort of intimidating growing up with a whole bunch of the older guys, and they were always, we'd go out in the backyard, and they didn't take it easy on me. They treated me like I was one of them. My older brother Brad, he got sick when he was growing up, had Hodgkin's disease and some things. They say he would have been the best ball player of them all, but and then my grandma, actually, she's a huge baseball fan. And
I want to talk about, that's a great story, your grandma. How many grandmothers are baseball fans?
Oh, I know. And she's the biggest one in the family. I think, she had her apartment, she was living by herself, and she fell in love with the Braves, even when they were terrible. Back there with Dale Murphy and Bob Horner, and a long time ago. And she just kept following them on TBS. And to the point where you would have thought they were her kids. She knew where they were from, what they were doing.
Right.
And I remember once I got in high school, she came up to me and kept talking about Tom Glavine and a pitch that he learned, and it was called the circle change. She told me, this is the pitch that you have to learn. It saved Tom Glavine's career.
And she's teaching you a pitch.
She's telling me about the circle change-up before many people knew about the circle change-up. And, she always took me out. She was the one that watched us after school. So 2 years old, I was out in the backyard. She was throwing baseball to me, hitting, throwing. And then add in my brothers and then our core group of friends that were always together. We were either playing football, basketball, pool, ping pong, or we were playing home run derby, baseball in the backyard. That was pretty much every day we did that.
Well, see, a lot of people don't realize it, but you played other sports than just baseball, because I know you only threw baseball, but you played basketball and you played football as you were growing up.
We played anything that we could play. If you could play it in the street and there were people doing it, we were going to do it. We had some pretty big-time competitive pickup basketball games in the neighborhood. Back when Morocco Brown and Tony Jordan, Faisal Abraham, all those guys were playing basketball, we'd have some pickup games over the house going on. I remember one night at my house, I was the first guy to get the lower adjustable goals. And looked over, and we had Ray Washington and Milan Brown out there playing with us. They were the same age as my brother, and it was just pretty cool to see that happening.
Right. Then you went to middle school. Sims Middle School when you went. It was junior high when I was there. But as an 8th grader, you went over and was on the JV team at Kecoughtan. Is that correct?
Yes.
And who was your coach?
John Green.
John Green.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that experience, because you weren't the only one who went over.
No, Dave Denton was on the team. I think we had a couple other 8th graders that went over there. It's pretty exciting, going from playing Little League baseball to, you get to wear the Kecoughtan hat. Growing up, we always idolized Kecoughtan baseball,
Right.
And being a young kid, you wanted to get that green hat they gave out on Friday after practice so you could wear it around at the Little League field that day. And, I just remember finally making the team and getting the hat, and it was an exciting experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, we're talking about Denton. That's Buddy's son, played first baseman. Is that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I remember. Tall kid.
Big guy.
Right. David was more was stockier.
Oh, yeah.
Than David.
And much taller. I think Alan was about 6 foot. Dave was 6'3", 6'4".
Right.
He was a monster over there. People were scared to pitch to him.
Well, he covered first base pretty good. But I love the idea that your mother was, your grandmother was teaching you pitches. I just think that's awesome. Then you went to, as a varsity, you went up as a 9th grader. Then you started at varsity. But you weren't the only 9th grader that made the varsity.
Dave Denton came along, too. He was up. We were one of the first, I think, 2 9th graders to make varsity since Tad Pabst did it back when he was in 87. Or
Right.
would have been probably 84, 85. When he was a freshman, he made the ball team. But, it was a great experience because most of the guys we had played American Legion. We were allowed to play. You could have a couple 8th graders on American Legion at the time. So David and I played on that. So it was great playing with the older guys and then finally moving up onto the varsity level.
Right. Who coached your American Legion team?
Usually it was Mike McCormick. It was Coach Denton and Coach McCormick were head and assistant. They just flip-flop roles in the summertime. Right. And, we had a pretty successful American Legion team as well.
Right. McCormick played for me when I was coaching over at Sims Junior High, so we got a little connection here.
Yeah.
Now, when you went to Kecoughtan as a freshman, you got 10th, 11th, 12th graders there. I mean, how did you fit in? I mean, did you, because of your ability, they accepted you, or did you have to really prove yourself?
I mean, I think we had to prove ourselves once we got there, but we also knew a lot of these guys, and being part of at the Denton household, all the players always hung out, and so these were guys I've been watching. I've been playing against, and I think our ability, could keep us up there with them.
Right.
And, one thing about Coach Denton, he always wanted his teams to compete, and that's, as 9th graders, we went up there thinking we could compete.
Well, and you guys did a great job up there because, while you were there, you won the district, you go on to the state. In fact, you get all the way to the finals.
But sometimes when y'all show that game on TV, it makes me want to cry when I see the base hit up the middle. But we did. Our junior year, we played for the state title up at Garfield High School. Lost 3-2. It was a great experience. Wish we would have got the state championship, though.
But you got Player of the Year in baseball back to back. Boy, that just doesn't happen. I'm just, a lot of people don't understand that you have to be pretty doggone good to get that, because that's not something they just hand out to any old body.
I mean, I think I had the talent, but I think along with the team that we had,
right.
It makes it a lot easier as a pitcher when you go up there knowing if you throw pitches that if you get base or ground balls, you get pop flies, your defense is going to take care of it.
Right.
And, I think that played a lot of the role in it, is the teams we were playing. And that, our team was just so tight, and you couldn't help but want to succeed. And, we just felt we couldn't be beat.
And that being together for as long as you guys were, growing up together, that had to have a lot to do with it. Do you remember what your record was as a pitcher through high school?
I think I still hold the state record. I'm not sure if Ethan Carter broke it or not, but I'm 36-8 in high school.
Wow.
And had a chance to pitch a lot of big time games and a lot of games.
But again, you got to have the defense behind you, and you evidently had a lot of confidence.
Oh.
Now, did Buddy call the pitches, or how did that work?
I tell you, Coach McCormick called him, but I think it was after my sophomore year. Coach McCormick left, and Tab Pabst came on as an assistant,
right.
And Tab took over calling the pitches. And I really liked it a lot. At first I didn't understand, being young. Hey man, I'm gonna strike everybody out. I thought there were times where during the pitch sequence, hey man, I could throw a breaking ball and strike this guy out, and Tab's calling a fastball. They hit a ground ball and I get him out. Everything's great, but I'm thinking I want strikeouts. And it wasn't until that year, Tab Pabst, I called Coach Denton over and said, I want to call my own pitches. Coach said, are you sure? You got to tell Tab. So I told Tab. Tab said, okay. And man, I couldn't get people out. I was throwing a lot of pitches. I wasn't getting as many strikeouts as I thought. And I remember going back to Tab, I want you to call my pitches again. He looked at me and went, nope, not doing it. And, you know, that was my first lesson of, man, trust your coaches. Trust what they're doing for you.
Well, and as you become a coach, that works too, doesn't it?
Yeah. And, you know, I look at it now and I'm like, man, I sure was dumb. You know, I didn't tell him not to call my pitches. This is a guy that played competitively in college. And, you know, at the time, I mean, he flamethrower. And, I mean, he was helping me out so much and I didn't realize it then.
Right.
And then going into my senior year, he left. He couldn't do it. And that was awful. You know, I remember just calling coach, saying, can you get Tab out to a game? Tell him to come out. You know, just because I felt confident with him behind me.
It's not that you couldn't do the calling your own pitches, but it was just the confidence you felt in him.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times, I'm sure the pitches he called was the one that you thought, that's the one I was going to throw.
Yeah. And it's just great, you know, as a coach, I want to call pitches. I know what to do. As a player, I wanted somebody to tell me. You know, if I was on the mound, tell me what pitch to throw. I'm gonna throw it. You know, I'm gonna throw it where you want it, and I'm gonna locate it. Just let me know. If it was left up to me as I'm pitching, I'd second guess myself. So
right.
I want somebody to call them. And if it got to a point where I knew this was a pitch I wanted, I could shake it off. For the most part, I wanted to go up there, having them call the pitches.
Right. Well, and you got so much confidence in that, and you were so obviously successful in it. You only lost 8 games. Talk about the experience of going to the state. I mean, a lot of people never get, you know, maybe get through the district and they lose before they even get to the regional playoffs. But talk about that experience.
You know, we just always thought at Kecoughtan during that time it was expected. You know, we didn't think, you know, oh my God, we're not going to make it. We were expected to be in the playoffs. You know, that's our mentality. Coach
was that something that you put on yourselves, and you knew you were going to do that?
We just felt that you know, us together and competing, that it would take a good team to beat us, and that's something Coach Denton did such a remarkable job of. It's just making us believe that no matter who we were playing, if they were loaded with draft picks, that we were a bunch of guys from Hampton or from Kecoughtan, you know, when we were up at the States, you know, and we're going to compete against you guys. And it was fun, and you know, it was a great experience. You know, our sophomore year we won the region. We didn't win the district, but we won the region. And then the second year we didn't win anything, but played for a state title.
Yeah, isn't that weird how it works sometimes?
And then going into my senior year, I think we were 20-0, 19-0 going into the. No, we were 21-0 going into the regional tournament and lost to Kempsville High School to end our season. At the time, we were 18th in the country. Ranked by USA Today, and that was alongside the state championship loss. That was one of the toughest ones because that was the end of our high school career.
Right, and it's a sorry note to say it, but that's the way you're going to end is on a loss.
Yeah,
unless you win the state.
Yeah, unless you win the state, you're going to end in a loss. And what set it up great was First Colonial had won the game before us. We were going to play First Colonial. They were undefeated from the beach. We just beat them the year before, you know. And it was just an awesome matchup. And then we go out there and we got beat, I think 6-2, something. And it was. I sometimes see the game on TV, and it's like,
oh no, flip that channel. All right, and then you went to Old Dominion. How did that process go? Because I know recruiting now is different than it was back then. Did you have any other schools that were on your radar at that time at all?
I was being recruited heavily by Old Dominion, VCU, Clemson, Virginia Tech, JMU, the school. You know, most of the schools in Virginia I was being heavily recruited by. And Old Dominion, I had some friends, Mark McFadden and Damon Phillips, they were over there playing baseball. Right. I knew the coach was phenomenal as far as pitching goes. And they offered me a scholarship, full scholarship, which I didn't know at the time. They didn't really offer full scholarships. You know, you just get partial because of the rules. And, you know, they told me, hey, you don't have to live in a dorm. You can have an apartment with Mark and Pookie. We have a baseball complex set up, you know, and, you know, thinking I'm a senior in high school, like, whoa, you know, all right. And, you know, Old Dominion was a great program, and we had some really good players at the time, and so I decided to, you know, sign with ODU and go there.
Well, you had a fantastic 2 years there, 16-1. It was just unbelievable.
You know, got over there, and you know, the coaching style fit. I loved it. I mean, he got after it at practice. He was head and shoulders above everybody else as far as pitching. I mean,
give me his name.
Pat McMahon.
Pat McMahon.
He ended up going to Mississippi State, where he was from, and then he took over at University of Florida, and he coached there for a couple of years. Now he's running I think he's in the Yankees system, and I think he's running the Dominican Academy for him. But the guy is just, I mean, first-class person, first-class everything that he does.
All right. Well, then he left and went to Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And here you are saying, oh, wow. I mean, you got friends here, but this is the guy that you want to play for.
Yeah, and that was the tough thing, is that, you know, it was a tough decision to make because we had such a good team that year. We went to the regionals. Right? We made it close to getting to the College World Series, and as soon as we get home, you know, we're excited, and we get a phone call the next morning. I had actually come home. Hey, we're going to have a baseball meeting today. So we all had to go back over there, and that's when he announced to us he was heading to Mississippi State. And, you know, I was just heartbroken, one, and then I had to think about, you know, do I want to stay here or do I want to go with them? And I wanted to go with them. I mean, you know, opportunity to move down to the SEC. It was tough making a decision to leave my friends behind, but
and what you and I were talking earlier about is normally now you would have to sit out a year, but then because they released you, and I'm talking about Jim Jarrett over at Old Dominion, the athletic director, released you. You was able to go down and play right away.
Yeah, well, you know, it was tough getting my release at first after my freshman year. And I was up at the Kecoughtan playing summer ball, and Coach Guzzo got the job, and he had come up and talked to me a couple times. And when I got home, I went to have the meetings with them, and, you know, they told me they wanted me to take a visit down there, meet with the coach and staff. So I had like a couple days to get down there, get back, and meet with them. When I came back, I originally decided I was gonna go. And when I came out of a meeting, one of our catchers, Mike Cow, was sitting there, and he said, "Take a ride with me." And he was like, "Man, we have everybody back. You know, one more year, that's it. One more shot." Said, "I've already talked to him. If you stay one more year, there will be no questions asked. All you got to do is say after your sophomore year is you want to go, and they'll sign them. No more meetings or anything." And you know, that the group of guys we had, it was hard to say no to that.
Wow.
You know, and I don't regret it at all because we had a great season that year. We made it to the regionals. That's where we ended up pitching against Ole Miss down at Florida State, down at the regionals. And that helped me when I made the transfer down to Mississippi State because, I mean, that's like Virginia Tech down there, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. They don't get along.
They don't get along,
and I beat Ole Miss in the regionals to pretty much knock them into the losers bracket. So, you know, once I got down there, it was like I was on instant, you know.
Well, we like this guy.
Yeah, honorary Bulldog, as they say. You're already part of the team.
He knocked out Ole Miss, so we'll take him.
Yeah.
And then you're down there. Do you remember what your record was down there?
You know, as soon as I got down there, when I was at ODU my sophomore year, I got invited for the Olympic trials in the fall, and my arm was bothering me. It was when I got home from the Cape. And it just wasn't the same. And I pitched that year with it, you know, hurting pretty bad.
Right.
And then finally I pitched in the regional game and started trying to throw, took the summer off, still hurt. And when I got down to Mississippi State, that's when they did a saline MRI on me. That's when I got the news that I had to have Tommy John surgery. So as soon as I got down there, you know, I went under the knife. They did the surgery. But I came back that year. I came back in April, and I was 3-0 my first year back.
Okay.
And I took on like the number 4 starter role, midweek starter. And, you know, sometimes relief during the SEC weekends. But, you know, the recruiting class down there just kept getting better and better. And my velocity went from throwing upper 80s, popping low 90s, to I was upper 70s, low 80s. You know, when you're playing LSU, you're playing, you know, Alabama down there. It was LSU when they won all those national championships, guerrilla ball. 83-mile-an-hour fastball ain't going to get you much down there.
Okay.
And so then that's when I decided to go ahead and redshirt my senior year, you know, because the coach said, we've got a pretty good staff. Why don't you redshirt, get stronger, and you come back for your 5th year and see what you got. So that's what I decided to do, and you know, during my real senior year.
Okay.
And that happened to be the year that we made it to the College World Series.
Wow. And that had to be an experience in itself.
Well, that's any college player's dream. This is the College World Series.
Right. Then you end up getting your degree, and you got your degree in
fitness management.
And you don't go coaching right away, but you do a long-term sub.
Yeah, I actually came back and I worked for a little bit. You know, I sold cars at Pomoco. I did some other things, and then I worked a summer baseball camp and decided, you know, I wanted to get back in this area, get into teaching and coaching. And that's when I went down to SAC, and they told me, yeah, you can start subbing right away. And I got a long-term job at Jones Middle School for an LD/ED class, and I was thrown to the wolves. It was an experience, but something that I loved. You know, gained a lot out of it.
And then you got the family life.
Luckily, Fendoff Taylor was in the building. He was looking for somebody for the family life position. He was talking to John Bailey. John Bailey told him that I was down in the special ed classroom subbing. I had I could teach PE right away, health and PE. So I went down there, talked to him, we interviewed, and I got the position.
Right. Then you end up at Bethel.
Yeah.
First head coach. First time coaching. And you go undefeated. I mean, where's this guy been? Somebody should have had him sooner. That had to be unbelievable.
It was a great experience, and it was hard to base everything else from coaching off of that, because you expect every year to be like that magical, it seemed like everything fit that year. I got the job second day of tryouts. I actually was assistant at Kecoughtan, and I was at their tryout on Monday, and then I was given the job on Tuesday at Bethel. I showed up with a key, with the guys. All right, guys, show me where things are at. And luckily, they were well coached group of kids, and they were athletes, and they were competitors. They had played all together their whole lives, and I think we fit right away.
Right.
I was young. And
talk a little bit about the transition from playing to coaching. Was that hard for you to do? Had you thought in the back of your mind, I'm going to be a coach sometime?
When I had never really thought about it, and when it was my second to last year at Mississippi State, we got a new pitching coach in, and he, I was always in the bullpen. He said, "You need to be a coach, man." I was like, "Oh, I'm thinking about it. I want to be." And so my senior year, my last year there, my fifth year, I wasn't on the travel roster. I hadn't picked up velocity, and I became more like a student coach. And so when you got to practice, and it would say pitchers in left field, hitters, Raffo, who was our hitting coach, and pitchers, Wheeler. So, I would be in charge of the drills we were going through and things like that. And when it came to bunt defenses, first and third plays, I'd always played under Coach Mack, so I knew those things. And so I was often, used more as a student coach my last year.
Who was your assistant coach over there at Bethel when you went over?
My first year was my friend Pookie, Damon Phillips, my best friend. Me, Dave, him, we're always together. I called him over, and he was there for the first year, and it was awesome. Awesome to be able to coach with him.
You're two buddies. You grew up together, and now you go undefeated. Yeah. How great is that?
We still talk about it now. And it was just so much fun. We look back on it, I was like, we never had to raise our voice. All we had to do was just, get them in the right frame of mind and just get them out there on the field. And it was just a great experience. We look back, I see him every couple months, and every time we're together, we talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you call the pitchers?
Oh, yeah.
It was easier to do it from there than on the mound.
Because high school kids, a lot of them don't know reading of the swings and the tendencies batters have. I'm not there to tell them that, I'm there to say, hey, this swing right now, said if you throw him a breaking pitch, he's going to have a hard time hitting it. We have them set up in these positions. They didn't really understand that at first, but the more we worked and, the more the pitcher started hanging out, we would talk about things, and they got onto the same page too, to where, if I wasn't there or something, they could handle it.
Yeah, well, everybody thought, well, he won the first year, he went undefeated, and you were there for 8 years.
Yeah.
So, and did a good job there for 8 years. You had some good ball players come through.
Yeah, first year we had Quan Evans, Eric Tansmore, Andrew Fagans, Michael Lorena, those guys were players. And it was a tough transition from when those guys graduated, because I lost 10 seniors.
Right.
They all left, and I brought up a whole new group of kids, and it was a different experience. And that's when real coaching had to take place. Right. And
you couldn't sit back, got a coast on.
Yeah. These guys, you had to be hands-on, but they ended up, it was, we learned together. And by the time that those guys were juniors and seniors coming up, we were able to make it to regionals. I think we got to the regionals 6 out of the 8 years we were there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that was our goal the whole season. I'm like, we just have to be in a position to where, when it comes to Memorial Day, we're out at Old Dominion playing on their field.
Yeah. Now, you transferred to Kecoughtan because you wanted to coach your girls. They were playing softball and all that, and so you transferred over there. You give up your coaching, and everything went fine for a year.
Yeah, well, my wife was president of Fox Hill Athletic Association. My kids were involved with the cheerleading and everything through that. They were doing softball. And it was tough. I'm a big family type guy. And, being up at Bethel, it's far away, and my kids were all around Kecoughtan kids, and it was just tough. And,
Right.
at the time I was like, well, I want to coach my kids. I want to, do the softball thing with them. So, I gave up the coaching and moved over to Kecoughtan to start teaching. I was also in an admin program.
Yeah.
And once I did that a year, and my daughters decided they were going to move to Fame All-Star cheering up in York County, and no longer were they playing softball anymore. So there was no need for me to coach it anymore.
Now this summer, now I don't know if this was the first time you worked with the Wood Blatt League over there with the pilots. Was this the first year you did that?
Well, it was last summer.
Last summer.
That was the first time I had done that. Hank and I, we've been friends since we were little.
Right.
Playing Little League ball, and he had told me they needed a pitching coach, needed somebody out there, so I went out there for a summer.
How was that experience?
Awesome. It was great being a part with the college kids, and seeing kids that have created their own work ethics that you can pick their brain because they've been at some of the best colleges around playing baseball. I learned as much from them as they did from me, and it was awesome. It was just very 56 games in 60 days. On the road.
That's amazing, isn't it?
And especially when you have two kids, and I'm very, very involved in their lives.
Right.
I just couldn't do it again.
Talk a little bit about Wayne Gomes. Now, I know you've known Wayne and the program he works, and he's worked with the pilots a lot too. Do you pull from him some of his experiences that he had in the pros?
Oh yeah.
How does that work?
I've known Wayne since we were in Little League together.
Right.
And since I've gotten back into coaching, he started his indoor place. I've coached with him with the RBI teams. I've done lessons out of his place, and I'm all constantly asking him, pitching advice, mechanics, just some of his opinions on how to do things. And he played for Coach McMahon too.
Right.
And like I said, he feels the same way about Coach McMahon as I do. He's the best guy that you'll ever come across, and they're still very tight to this day.
Well,
and so anytime that I can talk to Wayne, and I know that he's been taught by the guy that we all respect more than anything in the world.
That means a lot. Now, before I wrap this thing up, this has been a great interview, but you guys are going to do something over there at Kecoughtan High School, what I think is just remarkable. You're going to dedicate the field over there to Buddy Denton.
Oh yeah.
You're going to make it Denton Field?
Yeah, Buddy Denton Field, and it's something that I think is long time deserved. He was Kecoughtan baseball. He got it started. He put him on the map.
Did.
And some of the kids now don't understand the relationships he's built and what he means, and how Kecoughtan baseball, was respected in the early 70s, 80s, and 90s. It was a powerhouse.
Yeah.
And
and it was always you had to play, but they didn't say playing Kecoughtan. They would say you got to play Buddy Denton.
You got to play Buddy Denton.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, there's no other thing to do but that. He's meant so much.
How are you going to do this? Are you going to have a special day? How's that going to work?
We're going to pick a Saturday, and hopefully it will be one of the first ones of the school year. Of the season.
Right.
And we're going to dedicate it to him. We're going to get a lot of people out, alumni, and we want to dedicate. And I'm looking to get some windscreen put up in center field with some nice things to say on it. And we're also going to be working on an alumni wall for baseball, and it's going to be right as you walk up to the field where we sell alumni bricks. You get your name, engraved, and we're going to build a wall.
Similar to what they're doing down at Darling Stadium.
Just like they're doing at Darling Stadium, and then we're going to make that, eventually turn that into a nice marquee, with the alumni around it, Buddy Denton's picture in the middle of it, and so people understand, Kecoughtan baseball and what it's about, and how many people he has touched. I don't know if you go anywhere with Buddy Denton. You go to the golf course, you go to the store, you're going to find 1,000 people that come up to him and say, Buddy D, how you doing? Yeah. And they all just love him to death. Yeah. And
he's touched a lot of kids.
And I've grown up being best friends with David since I was 6th grade. I pretty much stayed at their house, and so I know him. He's just like
almost
my
like
dad.
Another dad.
My dad wasn't around, so I was always Buddy D, and he was always been my dad. And so it's like, what more could we do? And I'd like to see get him out to games more.
Well, I appreciate you coming by.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for tuning in to LSC and Sports Time. I want to thank my special guest Brett Wheeler. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Till next time.